Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And your host, Stella Monova. And today I want to talk about one of the most difficult topics that a lot of humanitarians are going through, and the topic of transitioning feeling like a divorce, right? Just like in the marriage that we get divorced, especially when we're not the one initiating the divorce and then it comes unexpected, all the pain that we go through divorcing, that is probably how it's feeling for many of us humanitarians going through this process as the funding cuts came about this in the spring. So therefore, the topic that I really wanted to address here is how can we not make it into a divorce, just like the divorce in a marriage, and how can we make it instead a completion of one chapter and going into the next, and what are the elements that we need to process through so that we can go through that, because otherwise it will feel like a very arduous, hard process of keep going through this emotionally, and also it may feel like staying stuck in the place or keep being in denial that what if this is just a dream and it will all go away kind of feelings, and then not really taking care of our future and taking care of ourselves and our families. And that's not what we want to do, right? So therefore I really wanted to get us to look at it from why this process has become like a divorce type of process and not just leaving the job. And of course, we always have our explanations of why and how this job has been more than a job, right? It has been our life, it has been our dedication, our commitment. It has been the place where we gave it all. It has been the place where we have survived a lot together. It has been the place where we have bonded. We have had a lot of successes. We have served the people. We have done things beyond what we thought was possible. So therefore, obviously, we have a lot of history there. But at the same time, I would like to invite all of us to reflect on why does it still become like a divorce process, in the sense of it being very painful, it being very hurtful, it being like a betrayal, it feeling like we thought we would grow all together, we would do this work until the end of our lives, we would do this the way that we have always done, and now all of that is not there, and therefore we are experiencing a lot of emotions of um, like fear, confusion, without orientation, feeling like left behind or treated badly, feeling like unfairly treated. All of those is coming up. And this is after us having sacrificed a lot of our years, a lot of our professional integrity, all of this. And then what do we get kind of feeling, right? What do we get in response? And the organization feels like it just says, well, deal with it. And what do we do in that moment, that we turn this feeling, this transitioning, not just a divorce, but rather a completion of one chapter and working on building a new one. So, whenever I talk to humanitarians about this, of how this is being perceived like a divorce, I always want people first to look at why does it feel like a divorce, right? Why we're treating the organization like a spouse that has given us the divorce notice, and now we need to somehow go to court, or now we need to make a decision that we didn't anticipate. Why does it feel like with the organization? And a lot of the conversation that leads me to then see that we have maybe inadvertently, right, without really realizing that we have maybe made this or like relationship with the organization somewhat codependent relationship. And the way that codependent relationships look like is that we essentially, the main theme of the codependent relationship is I cannot live without you and you can't live without me, right? Essentially this. So in other words, I need to save you, you need to save me kind of a relationship where we depend on each other so much that we can't function on our own is really what a codependent relationship is. Now, then the question is, how did we turn our work relationship, our work passion, our passion for the cause be so turn it into a codependency, right? How did we allow that to happen? And I'm really curious as to what you will be reflecting on your own on these questions. And I would love to hear from you. So you can also email me Asel at complaintfree.life, where you can tell me about your reflections of how you made this relationship into a codependent one. I would like to explain or at least share my reflections on how I have done it in my own work as a humanitarian, how I have turned my employer like a codependent relationship. In the way that I have done it is because I have started the journey of being a humanitarian when I was, I think, first 19, and then later I joined, it was 20, when I was 24 years old, and I celebrated my first 25th year old birthday with the with other humanitarians while we were in an emergency setting. And at the time when I joined the organization, I didn't have a concept of how to build relationships in general, and let alone relationship with an employer, right? I was just like, okay, this is the cause I'm so interested in. These are the people that I want to serve, and I'm going to give my all, and I'm going to sacrifice everything else to be here and to do this work. And of course, I'm not regretting that that's what I did, but also I think there are a lot of lessons I could have learned from why did I sacrifice all of this time that I could have spent with my loved ones, or I could have built relationship with others. It took me a long time to recognize it. And the danger there is that when we go into a relationship without really realizing or without really thinking about what kind of relationship I want to, what kind of healthy relationship I want to build, right? What is even healthy for me? And how do I build that relationship with everyone, including my employer? Then probably I would have gotten to a better place. But of course, I didn't at the time. So then what this led me to then is that it led me to believing that my employer was really my everything, right? It was my lover, it was my passion, it was my enemy. It was my everything. I had like a lot of suffering through this. I also had a lot of successes going through this. And I grew a lot in the process as well, but also it cost me a lot, especially being burnt out twice, having depression and recovering from everything after a while, and then quitting it and then coming back. So this is really how my codependent relationship looked like. And interestingly, I also should note that my relationship with my guys at the time, I was dating a lot of different guys, and I remember also my relationship with guys were also very codependent, meaning that I believe that they should love me and they should love me forever, and they can't leave me, they can't separate from me, they can't like find someone else. This is it. We are bound together for life. And somehow I had all of these expectations. And then whenever the relationship ended, I would feel so hurtful. I would uh, like hate everyone around me. I would not date for a long time and hating everyone, and then not trusting everyone. And therefore, I would have a lot of roller coasters in my relationships, right? So therefore, I actually, as I evolved in my humanitarian journey, I also compared my relationship with the employer with the my relationship with guys, and then I saw a lot of patterns being the same thing. And then as I started realizing after burnout, I realized, oh my God, I don't want to keep having this type of relationship where I burn out every time. And then I started looking at why am I burned out? Why can't I have my healthy relationships with the employer? Why am I still in this codependency with this employer? And this is what I started doing thanks to coaching. And this was 2015 when I started working on this, right? Excuse me. And then I started realizing what a healthy relationship looks like for me. And what a healthy relationship with an employer looks like for me. And as I started doing this work, I started realizing, okay, I want to be very much into the cause, into what I want to do and how I want to serve these people. But I also want to have the freedom to do that within this institution or outside, because these institutions are just means, they're not the end, right? But I think the codependency starts happening is when we think that this institution is the end and not just the means. And the way that another way maybe that I could explain is that when I think that this institution is all and everything and this dominates my life, this is in charge of my life, and this is what takes care of me versus I'm the one who takes care of me. I'm in charge of my life, but this institution allows me to get my impact in a bigger way to the people that I want to, and therefore it becomes like the intermediary or the means or the method to go through rather than if this is it and this is the reason why I can't go to vacation. This is the reason why I can't feel like I can't feel safe or I can't feel stable. If this goes away, then I'm screwed. That is when it becomes codependent relationships, right? So as I started realizing then, I started realizing also that, okay, if I'm in charge of my stability, my safety, and my financial and emotional well-being, and it's not the organization, the employer, then do I really want to keep serving the people through these means, or there are other ways that I can do that? And that's when I started gaining my freedom to then be able to transition to what I wanted to do, which is coaching without using any institutions as means, right? And that's really the freedom that I would like for you to experience, where you no longer feel like you're divorcing the organization and therefore you can't be on your own and you can't do anything on your own and you are screwed and you are this and you are that. And if you're staying in that space, you will be feeling a lot of powerlessness. You will feel like a victim of the circumstances, and you will also feel like you cannot trust yourself to be building what you want to. And that is the divorce process we want to reduce and as much as possible eliminate and make it bring it to a completion, right? So therefore, here is what I have experienced in my own journey, and I would like to suggest to you to do this as well, is first looking at why and how have you created this experience of codependency with your employer, or how have you done this with the with this employer in a way that it feels like a divorce, right? And we will not be doing it to blame yourself, obviously, or nor blaming the organization. We want to just be aware of how are you doing this? How have you been doing this? How have you let the employer take over and be in charge of your life so much that you have just given everything, all the power to the employer, that you haven't learned how to keep and own the power within yourself, right? This is really what we're looking at. Because the more you realize that, oh, the reason I was sacrificing all of my other commitments to be with the organization and to do everything the organization asked me to do was because I feared that if I didn't do that, I wouldn't keep the job. Okay. Now, why did you fear that you would lose that job if you didn't do that? Because you probably thought that if you can't have this job, then it will be very difficult to get something else. Now we can even go further and see, why did you fear so much that you wouldn't be able to find something else? You may say, well, I didn't believe that I could find this type of job, this type of pay and all of this. Again, we can go further and say, why did you not believe that you wouldn't be able to find it? And this is where we start seeing that you didn't believe that you are capable of having another job with similar pay or even more working on the cause. You didn't believe that you are capable of getting it, or you didn't believe you are capable of creating it, right? Now we're getting somewhere and we start looking at, okay, what can you do now to believe that you are actually in charge of your own stability and safety and emotional, mental, financial well-being? And it doesn't need to depend fully on the organization to the point that it feels like it owns you, right? And that's exactly what we don't want to. So as you start reflecting on how you might have created this codependency, you start looking at all of your relationships, not only with the employer, but with other relationships as well. And that's what I did with my own journey is I started looking at my all other relationships. Like I even started looking at my codependency with money. I used to feel like if I don't make money, I'm doomed and gloomed and I would be so stressed out about it. And then I realized, oh, I see how I have given all the power to money to own me or to like govern over me, which is not what I want to do because I want to be in charge of my own life, my well-being, and I don't want to abdicate it to the employer, to money, to other relationships. Because as soon as we abdicate it to the employer, we are now dependent on the employer for everything, right? Now, it may also sound like, yes, we want to be dependable and we want to depend on the employer, and that's normal. And I can see the points of how we would want to do that. But if it costs us to feel so fearful without it, and if it costs us so much that we're willing to sacrifice our lives with our loved ones, if it costs us so much anxiety that we're not able to find another job and keep feeling like we can't function without it, then we may need to question that dependability. So therefore, the first thing, as I said, is really reflecting on how are we creating or keep contributing to this codependent relationship with the employer that the transitioning itself feels like a divorce, and in what way it feels like a divorce. And maybe it feels like a divorce because you feel hurt by the organization, you feel betrayed, you feel like you are not taken care of well, you feel mistreated. Then the question you can always ask yourself to reflect is, why are you letting it? Right? Why are you letting the organization do this to you? And you may have the answers like I did, which was because I believe that the organization should do this. The organization should have been taking care of me. Organization should have treated me differently. The organization should have given me the contract and the notice 6 months and not 1 month. The organization should have told us in advance and consulted us how the decisions were made, and all of those expectations, I hear you, except they're not the reality, right? As much as we want to say that the organization should have done this way and should have done another way, as much as we have all the right to say that, this is not how the reality is, right? So we're fighting the reality. Now, the question is then why? Why are we fighting the reality? What are we trying to prove with it? And let's say even we did prove it, then what? Right? Are we going to continue staying in this situation where we are showing and proving how right we are and how what we're saying is the only truth and nothing else? Even then what? Right? So I'm always interested in, let's say we did all of those, then what are we going to do? Then how is that going to cost us all of this energy, all of this emotional roller coaster, and then what? So that's why, after having reflected the first about how we might have created this codependency and how we might have created this experience where we feel like being divorced by the organization rather than us leaving and completing it, now the next step is always, how do we want this process to be? And I think this is something that a lot of the times we don't think about it. And I hear you why that is also because we're, of course, so much in hurt feeling, in disappointment, in denial, in disbelief. And therefore, we don't even think like we have the power to be intentional about going forward, but we do. Whatever the emotions that we're going through, we still have the power then to decide next as to how do we want this process to be? How do we want this transitioning to be? How do we want this experience of now completing the one chapter and going to the next chapter to be? Because if we keep allowing all the fear to dominate us, to say we're not going to find anything else, we're doomed, we should stick to what we know, we can't just go anywhere else, we can't function without this organization. If we stay in that place, then what do you think we're going to create moving forward? What do you think our experience will be moving forward? It will be very, very hard, right? And I know that that's as much as we feel like there is no other option, that's exactly the option we don't want to have. So then we want to look at it, okay, how do we want our experience to be moving forward, but also how do we want our relationship with our employers to be moving forward, right? What does a healthy relationship with an employer looks like? How do we want to use our employer in the way to the cause that we want to go for, right? Because the employer in itself is not really the goal. The goal is to work on the impact, to grow as professionals, to serve as much as possible, to get the fulfillment from doing this, to feel good that this is what we're doing, and having the money on the side. This is what the goal is, right? So therefore, whether this employer or another one, what is the um, healthy and most like powerful way of building relationships that is not involving, I can't function without you, you can't leave me, you can't betray me, and then feeling like we are no one without it. So once we have reflected and then we have looked at how do we want now our relationship to be, how do we want our experience to be, then the third thing is really looking at how do we want to go through this process? And I always love this question. I always love this idea that we always have the autonomy over our identity of who do we want to go through this process. And like in the divorce processes on movies that we have seen, or maybe even in real life that I haven't experienced, but I hear as well, where we get so nasty about it, we get so like hating, we get so bitter about it, we get so this is not how it should be, in denial and resistance and disbelief and all of these, and sarcastic about it. And I have been there as well, I must say, as I was transitioning. But I was also thinking now in hindsight, is that really who I wanted to go through the process? Right? Is that really how I want to go through the process where I blame the organization for all the things that it didn't do? I keep blaming why the reason I'm not happy in my life and I didn't achieve all the things I want in life because of the organization. Is that really who I want to go through this? And at least my goal is that's not how I want to go through this. My goal is I want to go through this process feeling like okay, I have completed this part and I want to start something else, and I want to continue working on my cause. I want to be always all in on my cause. I want to be committed and loyal to the cause that I'm working on. And I want to do that for my own sake, because that's the person I want to be going through this process, without blaming anyone, without hating on anyone, without being bitter about anything, without being sarcastic about it, because that's not who I want to be, right? I want to be the person who feels so powerful to go through this process, finishing things, processing emotions, grieving things, at the same time feeling confident that I know how to build the next chapter even better than the one that I have. And I trust myself, the universe, everyone around me who can do this together with me. And I want to get ready for that as well once I have finished and completed this part. So, my dears, I would love to invite you to do this work together with me individually, where we work through a lot of these and then build healthy, powerful relationships with the employer and with others as well, where you get to build that and you get to go through this process of transitioning in a way that feels good to you rather than feel so draining and exhausting and arduous that you can't wait for it to be over. So if this is you, email me, Asel at complaintfree.life, and I would love to get you coached up with me to get to this outcome. Have a beautiful week. Bye.